The coffee shop buzzed with morning activity, but Harper Kane barely noticed as she hunched over her laptop, the deadline for her graphic design project looming like a storm cloud. That's when she first noticed him, the quiet man who always took the corner table by the window, his face partially hidden behind a worn paperback book. She wouldn't have given him a second thought if the owner hadn't suddenly asked her to train the new barista him. Harper glanced up from her laptop, eyebrows raised as Roy, the coffee shop owner, introduced the new hire. "This is Lucas Quinn. He'll be working mornings. Show him the ropes. Will you?" The man gave her a slight nod, his expression unreadable beneath a day's worth of stubble and a navy blue beanie pulled low over his forehead. Harper noticed his hands strong but elegant, with calluses that didn't seem to match someone who'd been reading Dostoevsky moments earlier. "Have you ever made coffee professionally before?" Harper asked, setting aside her work with a barely concealed sigh. "No," Lucas replied, his voice deep and quiet. "But I'm a quick learner." Something about his calm demeanor irritated Harper. Most new hires were at least a little nervous. This guy acted like learning to operate a professional espresso machine was as simple as tying shoelaces. "Well, it's not as easy as it looks," she said, gesturing for him to follow her behind the counter. "The morning rush here is brutal. One mistake and you'll have 50 finance bros breathing down your neck because their triple shot macchiato isn't perfect." Lucas's mouth quirked slightly. "I think I can handle pressure." Harper rolled her eyes. "We'll see about that." Over the next hour, Harper walked Lucas through the basics: grinding beans, tamping, pulling shots, and steaming milk. To her surprise, he picked up everything quickly, his movements precise and methodical. He didn't talk much, answering her questions with brief, to-the-point responses, but he was attentive, never needing to be told anything twice. "So what's your deal?" Harper asked as they prepared for the morning rush. "You don't seem like the typical barista type." Lucas glanced at her. "What's the typical barista type?" "I don't know. College student? Aspiring musician? Failed novelist?" She shrugged. "People usually have a reason for working here. What's yours?" For a moment, Lucas seemed to consider his answer carefully. "I needed a change of pace." Before Harper could press further, the bell above the door chimed and the first wave of customers flooded in. To her surprise, Lucas handled the rush with ease, working efficiently beside her without getting flustered. She had expected to spend the morning fixing his mistakes, but instead found herself impressed by his composure. When the rush finally slowed around mid-morning, Harper wiped sweat from her brow and looked at Lucas with newfound respect. "Not bad for your first day," she admitted. "Thanks." He cleaned the steam wand methodically. "You're good at this." "3 years of practice," Harper replied. "It pays the bills while I build my portfolio. I'm a graphic designer, or trying to be anyway." Lucas nodded, his eyes showing interest for the first time. "Digital or traditional?" "Both, but mostly digital these days. The job market demands it." Harper narrowed her eyes. "You know about design?" "I've worked with designers before," he said simply. The day continued like this, Harper trying to figure out Lucas's story, and Lucas revealing virtually nothing about himself. She learned he was new to the neighborhood, lived alone, and preferred black coffee. That was it. Most people couldn't resist talking about themselves, but Lucas seemed to have mastered the art of polite deflection. By the end of her shift, Harper had decided Lucas Quinn was either painfully shy or hiding something. Either way, it wasn't her problem. She had a deadline to meet, rent to pay, and no time to puzzle over the mysterious new barista. "Same time tomorrow?" Lucas asked as she gathered her things. "Unfortunately," Harper replied with a wry smile. "Try not to be late." Lucas nodded, the ghost of a smile crossing his face. Wouldn't dream of it. Harper couldn't have known that the quiet man making lattes beside her was Lucas Quinn, CEO of Quinn Enterprises, one of the most successful tech companies in the country. She couldn't have known that the change of pace he mentioned was actually part of a secret experiment, one that would change both their lives forever. The next morning, Harper arrived to find Lucas already there, setting up the espresso machine. "Early riser?" she asked, tying her apron. "Force of habit," he replied, not looking up from what he was doing. Harper studied him for a moment. He wore another simple outfit today: dark jeans, a plain gray Henley, and the same navy beanie. Nothing about him suggested wealth or importance. If anything, he looked like he shopped at discount stores. Yet there was something in his posture, in the way he carried himself, that didn't quite fit the image. "You're staring," Lucas said, finally glancing up at her. Harper felt her cheeks flush. "Sorry, just trying to figure you out." "Not much to figure out," he replied, turning his attention back to the coffee grinder. The morning rush came and went. Lucas worked diligently beside her, making few mistakes and fewer comments. By the time things slowed down, Harper had almost forgotten he was there until she turned and bumped straight into him. "Sorry!" she exclaimed as hot water splashed between them. Lucas steadied her with a hand on her arm. For a brief moment, they were close enough that Harper could smell his cologne, something expensive that didn't match his thrift store appearance. Their eyes met, and Harper felt an unexpected flutter in her stomach. "My fault," he said, releasing her arm and stepping back. "I wasn't watching where I was going." Harper cleared her throat. "No harm done." Throughout the day, she found herself stealing glances at Lucas. There was something off about him, something that didn't add up. He moved with too much confidence for someone who'd never worked in a coffee shop before. His hands were too well maintained for someone who seemed to live so modestly. And occasionally, when he thought no one was watching, his posture changed from the slightly hunched stance of someone trying not to stand out to something more commanding. During their afternoon break, Harper sat across from Lucas at one of the small tables. He was reading again, this time Hemingway. "Are you some kind of literary snob?" she asked, only half joking. Lucas looked up, his expression unreadable. "Is reading classics snobbish?" "It is when you're doing it ostentatiously in a coffee shop," Harper replied. "It's a little pretentious." To her surprise, Lucas laughed, a genuine, warm sound that transformed his face. For the first time, Harper noticed how attractive he was when he wasn't being so serious. "Fair point," he admitted. "What would you recommend instead? To be less pretentious?" Harper considered this. Maybe start with something people actually read for fun, not to impress their college professors. "Like what?" "I don't know. What do you like? Mystery? Science fiction? Romance?" Lucas thought for a moment. "I don't read much fiction anymore. Work usually takes up most of my time." "What kind of work did you do before this?" Harper asked, seizing the opportunity. Lucas hesitated, then answered carefully. "I was in tech." "What happened?" "Nothing dramatic. I just needed a break." Harper wasn't convinced, but she didn't push. Everyone had the right to their secrets, she supposed. Still, there was something about Lucas Quinn that made her want to know more. As days turned into weeks, Harper and Lucas fell into a comfortable routine. They worked well together, anticipating each other's movements behind the counter, developing the kind of silent communication that comes from spending hours side by side. Despite his reserved nature, Harper found herself enjoying Lucas's company. He was intelligent, observant, and occasionally revealed a dry sense of humor that caught her by surprise. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, the coffee shop was particularly empty. Harper sat at the counter, sketching on her tablet while Lucas cleaned the espresso machine. "That's good," he said, glancing over her shoulder at the logo she was designing. Harper looked up, startled. "Thanks. It's for a client, a local bakery." Lucas studied the design with interest. The typography works well with the illustration, clean but still artisanal. Harper narrowed her eyes. You know a lot about design for someone who was in tech. Lucas shrugged. I've worked with marketing teams before. In what capacity? Various roles, he replied vaguely, turning back to the espresso machine. Harper sighed in frustration. You know, normal people share basic information about themselves when they work together every day. Lucas was quiet for a moment, his back still to her. I'm not hiding anything important. I didn't say you were hiding something, Harper said. But now I'm suspicious. He turned to face her, a small smile playing at his lips. What do you want to know? Let's start with the basics. Where are you from? Boston, originally. Family? Parents divorced when I was 12, one younger sister. Why did you leave your tech job to make coffee? Lucas's expression grew more serious. That's complicated. Try me, Harper challenged. Lucas seemed to consider his words carefully. I was in a position where I lost touch with reality with what matters. I needed to step back and remember what it's like to live a normal life. Harper studied his face. For once, he seemed genuine, almost vulnerable. That's not what I expected, she admitted. What did you expect? I don't know. That you got fired for stealing company secrets or something exciting? Lucas laughed. Sorry to disappoint. You didn't, Harper said quietly. Actually, it's kind of refreshing. Most people are trying to escape normal life, not find it. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of customers, but something had shifted between them. Lucas still kept his cards close to his chest, but Harper felt like she'd glimpsed something real beneath his carefully maintained facade. The next day, Lucas brought Harper a coffee from her favorite bakery down the street, not the one they worked at. What's this for? She asked, accepting the cup with surprise. You've been patient. Teaching me, I mean, he said. And you haven't told Roy that I sometimes let the milk get too hot. Harper smiled. Your secret's safe with me. As she sipped the coffee, she realized it was exactly how she liked it, an oat milk latte with an extra shot and just a touch of vanilla. She couldn't remember ever telling Lucas her coffee preference. How did you know what I drink? She asked. I pay attention, he replied simply. The comment shouldn't have made her heart skip a beat, but it did. The idea that Lucas had been noticing things about her, even as she tried to figure him out, was unexpectedly thrilling. After their shift ended, Harper was packing up her things when Lucas cleared his throat. There's an exhibition at the Modern Art Museum this weekend, he said, his voice casual but his posture tense. They're featuring some digital artists. Thought it might interest you. Harper looked up, surprised. Are you asking me to go with you? If you want, Lucas said, his eyes meeting hers briefly before looking away. Professionally speaking, since you're a designer. Harper bit back a smile. Professionally speaking? Lucas ran a hand through his hair, dislodging his beanie slightly. Or not professionally. Just as people who know each other. Are you asking me on a date, Lucas? He sighed, his composure cracking slightly. I'm apparently doing a terrible job of it, but yes. Harper couldn't help but laugh. For someone so composed, you're surprisingly bad at this. I'm out of practice, he admitted. The exhibition sounds great, she said, taking pity on him. And yes, I'd like to go. As people who know each other. The relief on Lucas's face was almost comical. Saturday at 2? It's a date, Harper confirmed, a non-professional one. As she walked home that evening, Harper tried to make sense of her feelings. Lucas was undeniably attractive, and there was something intriguing about him that she couldn't quite put her finger on. But he was also guarded, mysterious, not exactly promising qualities in a potential relationship. Still, she couldn't deny the flutter of excitement she felt at the thought of spending time with him outside the coffee shop. Saturday arrived, and Harper spent far too long deciding what to wear. She finally settled on a casual but stylish outfit: high-waisted jeans, a silk blouse, and her favorite leather jacket. As she approached the museum, she spotted Lucas waiting outside, and for a moment didn't recognize him. Gone was the beanie and stubble. His dark hair was neatly styled, and he wore a well-tailored button-down shirt with dark jeans. He looked like a completely different person, polished, confident, and even more handsome than she'd realized. "Wow," she said as she approached. "You clean up nicely." Lucas smiled, seeming almost shy. "So do you." The museum was crowded, but Lucas had somehow secured tickets that let them skip the long line. Inside, they wandered through the exhibition, stopping to discuss pieces that caught their attention. Harper was impressed by Lucas's knowledge of digital art. He spoke intelligently about techniques and artistic influences, revealing yet another unexpected layer to his personality. "How do you know so much about this?" Harper asked as they stood before a particularly striking digital installation. Lucas hesitated. "My company worked with digital artists on some projects." "What kind of tech company was it?" "A successful one," he replied with a small smile. Harper rolled her eyes. "You're still being mysterious." "Maybe I like keeping you curious," Lucas said, his eyes meeting hers. The moment held between them, charged with something new and exciting. Harper found herself studying his face: the strong jawline, the intelligent eyes, the subtle curve of his lips. For the first time, she allowed herself to acknowledge just how attracted she was to him. After the exhibition, they stopped at a small cafe nearby. As they sat across from each other, Harper decided to be direct. "Can I ask you something?" Lucas nodded cautiously. "Why me?" Harper asked. "You're clearly intelligent, educated, successful in your previous career. Why ask out a barista who's struggling to make it as a graphic designer?" Lucas looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Is that how you see yourself? Just a barista?" "No, but—" "You're talented, Harper. I've seen your work. You have an eye for design that can't be taught." His voice was earnest. "And you're kind, even when you're pretending to be annoyed with me. You work hard. You're honest. You make me laugh." He paused. "The question isn't why I'd ask you out. It's why you said yes to someone who won't even tell you what he used to do for a living." Harper considered this. "I guess I'm a sucker for mysterious men who bring me coffee and know exactly how I like it." Lucas smiled, relaxing slightly. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you said yes." "Me too," Harper admitted. As they left the cafe, Lucas walked her to the subway station. In the fading light of evening, with the city bustle around them, they stood facing each other, neither quite ready to say goodbye. "I had a really good time," Harper said. "So did I," Lucas replied, his eyes searching hers. Then, with a confidence that surprised her, Lucas leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle but deliberate, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. Harper found herself responding immediately, stepping closer and resting her hands on his chest. The kiss deepened, and for a moment the busy street around them faded away. When they finally pulled apart, Harper felt slightly dazed. "That was long overdue," Lucas finished for her, his voice low. "I was going to say unexpected, but that works too." Harper smiled. Lucas brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Can I see you again? Outside of work?" "Definitely," Harper replied without hesitation. As she rode the subway home, Harper couldn't stop smiling. Despite all the questions she still had about Lucas Quinn, one thing was becoming clear: she was falling for him, mysteries and all. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Lucas and Harper continued working together at the coffee shop, maintaining a professional relationship during shifts, but outside of work, they were inseparable. They explored the city together, discovering hidden bookstores and cozy restaurants. Lucas took her to jazz clubs and art galleries, while Harper showed him her favorite street food vendors and vintage shops. With each date, Harper learned a little more about Lucas. He spoke 3 languages. He'd traveled extensively for work. He was surprisingly knowledgeable about architecture and could name every constellation in the night sky. But still, whenever the conversation turned to his former career or his apparent wealth, which became increasingly obvious through his tastes and habits, he would skillfully redirect the conversation. One evening, as they walked along the riverfront after dinner, Harper decided to confront him directly. "Lucas, can I ask you something?" He squeezed her hand. "Of course. Are you in some kind of trouble? Is that why you're being so secretive?" Lucas stopped walking and turned to face her. "No, nothing like that, I promise." "Then why won't you tell me about your past? Every time I ask about your work, you change the subject." Lucas sighed, looking out over the water. "It's complicated, Harper. My previous life, it comes with baggage, expectations, assumptions. With you, I'm just Lucas. Not my job, not my circumstances, just me." He looked back at her, his expression earnest. "Can that be enough for now?" Harper studied his face. There was no deception there, just genuine concern. "I guess so," she replied. "But eventually, you'll need to trust me with the whole truth." "I will," he promised, pulling her into his arms. "Just not yet." As their relationship deepened, Harper introduced Lucas to her small circle of friends. To her surprise, he fit in seamlessly, charming her college roommate Zoe and holding his own in a heated debate about film with her friend Ethan. By the end of the night, it was as if he'd always been part of their group. "Your boyfriend is not what I expected," Zoe whispered to Harper as they cleaned up after dinner. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. When you said he was working as a barista, I pictured some hipster wannabe, but Lucas is different, more substantial." Harper nodded slowly. "There's definitely more to him than meets the eye." "And he's totally into you," Zoe added with a grin. "The way he looks at you when you're not watching, it's the real deal." Harper. The thought made Harper's heart race. Despite the secrets between them, she knew her feelings for Lucas were stronger than anything she'd experienced before. The question was whether those secrets would ultimately bring them closer or drive them apart. One Saturday morning, Harper woke to the sound of rain against her apartment windows. She and Lucas had plans to visit a farmer's market, but the downpour made that impossible. Instead, they decided to stay in, cooking breakfast together in Harper's small kitchen. As Lucas expertly flipped pancakes, Harper set her phone down with a frustrated sigh. "What's wrong?" Lucas asked, glancing over his shoulder. "Just work stuff. A client is unhappy with my design, but they can't actually articulate what they don't like. They just keep saying it's not quite right." She ran a hand through her hair. "It's my biggest client to Meridian Publishing. I can't afford to lose them." Lucas turned off the stove and faced her. "What are you designing for them?" "A complete rebranding. Logo, website, marketing materials, everything." Harper pulled up the designs on her tablet. "Here's what they rejected." Lucas studied the work carefully, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This is excellent work, Harper. Really professional. But apparently not what they're looking for," she said glumly. "May I?" Lucas asked, gesturing to the tablet. When Harper nodded, he began scrolling through the files, examining each element of the design. His fingers moved across the screen with practiced ease, zooming in on details. "You know," he said after a moment, "I think I see the issue. Meridian publishes primarily academic and historical texts, right?" Harper nodded. "Exclusively." "Your design is beautiful, but it might be a bit too contemporary for their brand identity. Their audience isn't looking for cutting edge. They want authority, trustworthiness, tradition. Lucas adjusted a few elements on the screen. What if you went in this direction? Harper watched in amazement as Lucas made several subtle but significant changes to her design, transforming it from sleek and modern to something more classical, but still fresh. How did you do that? She asked, staring at the revised logo. That's exactly the balance I've been trying to find. Lucas handed the tablet back to her with a slightly sheepish expression. I may have some experience with branding strategies. Some experience? Harper repeated incredulously. Lucas, you just completely transformed my design in 5 minutes. That's not some experience. He shrugged. I worked closely with our design team at my old company. You pick things up. What exactly did you do at this mysterious tech company? Harper pressed. Lucas hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. I was in management. What kind of management? Executive level, he admitted reluctantly. Harper's eyes widened. Wait, you were an executive at a tech company and now you're making lattes? What happened? Lucas sighed, leaning against the counter. I told you I needed a change of pace. The truth is, I was becoming someone I didn't particularly like, isolated in my position, disconnected from the real world. I decided to take a sabbatical life differently for a while, remember what it's like to be normal. Harper processed this information. It explained a lot: his knowledge, his confidence, even some of his secrecy. But she sensed there was still more he wasn't telling her. So you're what, slumming it for a few months before you go back to your real life? Lucas looked hurt. That's not fair. This is my real life right now. And what I feel for you is real. Harper wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in. How can I know that? I don't even know who you really are. You do know who I am, Lucas insisted, stepping closer and taking her hands. I'm the guy who makes you coffee every morning. I'm the guy who listens to you rant about difficult clients. I'm the guy who's falling in love with you, Harper. The words hung in the air between them. Harper's heart pounded as she searched his face for any sign of deception. All she found was vulnerability and sincerity. I'm falling in love with you too, she admitted quietly. But I need to know there aren't any more secrets between us. No more vague answers. Lucas nodded slowly. You're right. You deserve the whole truth. He took a deep breath. My name is Lucas Quinn. I'm the founder and CEO of Quinn Enterprises. Harper stared at him blankly for a moment before recognition dawned. Quinn Enterprises? The tech giant? The company that makes the Q-Fusion software? Lucas nodded, watching her face carefully. That's... your... Harper struggled to process this information. Quinn Enterprises was worth billions. Their software was used by companies worldwide. She'd read about Lucas Quinn in business magazines, seen his name on lists of the most influential people in tech. You're a billionaire? Yes, Lucas confirmed simply. Harper sank into a chair, her mind reeling. Why didn't you tell me? Because people treat me differently when they know, Lucas explained, sitting across from her. They either want something from me, or they make assumptions about who I am based on my wealth. With you, it was just about us. No complications, no preconceptions. So you lied to me. I never lied, Lucas insisted. I just didn't tell you everything. I'm still the same person you've known these past months. Harper wasn't sure how to feel. On one hand, she understood his reasoning. On the other, finding out the man she was falling in love with had been hiding such a massive part of his identity was disorienting, to say the least. I need some time to process this, she said finally. Lucas nodded, looking resigned. I understand. For what it's worth, telling you was always the plan. I just wanted you to know me first, the real me, not the CEO. As Lucas left her apartment, Harper sat in stunned silence, trying to reconcile the quiet barista she'd been working alongside with the billionaire tech mogul he really was. Everything made sense now: his knowledge, his confidence, the subtle signs of wealth she'd noticed. But one question remained. Was their relationship real, or had she just been part of his experiment in normal living? The next day, Harper called in sick to work. She couldn't face Lucas yet, not until she sorted through her feelings. Instead, she spent the day researching Lucas Quinn, reading articles and watching interviews with him online. The man in those videos was clearly her Lucas, the same thoughtful intelligence, the same occasional dry humor, but he also exuded a power and authority she'd only glimpsed in fleeting moments. One interview in particular caught her attention. It had been filmed about 6 months earlier, just before Lucas had apparently stepped away from his company. "Success comes with costs," the on-screen Lucas was saying. "The higher you climb, the more isolated you become. I've built something remarkable with Quinn Enterprises, but lately I've been asking myself, at what personal cost?" The interviewer looked intrigued. "Are you considering stepping down?" "Not permanently," Lucas replied. "But I do think there's value in reconnecting with ordinary life. How can I build products for the average person when I've lost touch with what it means to be average?" Watching this, Harper felt a flutter of understanding. His sabbatical wasn't just some rich person's whim, it came from a genuine desire to remain grounded, to be a better leader. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "I understand if you need space. Just want you to know I meant everything I said yesterday. Every word." Harper stared at the message, her emotions still conflicted. Before she could reply, another text came through. "For what it's worth, I've never been more myself than when I'm with you." The simple honesty of those words broke through her confusion. Whatever his reasons for keeping his identity secret, the connection between them had been real. The man she'd fallen for wasn't the CEO or the barista, he was both, and he was neither. He was just Lucas, complicated and imperfect, and genuinely trying to find his way. After a restless night of little sleep, Harper made her decision. She went to the coffee shop first thing in the morning before opening. As she expected, Lucas was already there, setting up for the day. He looked up when she entered, his expression cautious but hopeful. "Harper, we need to talk," she said, walking behind the counter to face him. "I know." Lucas set down the cloth he'd been using to wipe the counters. "I'm sorry for not telling you sooner, I get why you did it," Harper interrupted. "I do. And maybe I even understand why you needed to step away from your life for a while. What I need to know is what happens now." Lucas looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, your experiment in normal living, is it almost over? Are you going back to being CEO Lucas Quinn soon? Where does that leave us?" Understanding dawned on his face. "Harper, this isn't just an experiment for me. Yes, I'll eventually return to my role at the company, but that doesn't change how I feel about you." He stepped closer. "I love you. That wasn't part of any plan. It just happened, and it's the most real thing in my life." Harper wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered. "But we come from such different worlds. You're you, and I'm just starting my career, living paycheck to paycheck." "None of that matters to me," Lucas insisted. "Money doesn't define who I am, and it certainly doesn't determine who I care about." He reached for her hands, holding them gently. "These past months have been the happiest of my life, Harper. Because of you. Not because I was pretending to be someone else, but because for the first time, I could just be myself." Harper searched his eyes and found nothing but sincerity. "I need you to promise me something." "Anything," Lucas replied without hesitation. "No more secrets, no matter what." Lucas nodded solemnly. "No more secrets. You have my word." Harper took a deep breath, then reached up to touch his face. "I love you too, you know. Barista Lucas or billionaire Lucas, it doesn't matter. I just love you. Relief flooded his features, and he pulled her into a kiss that left no doubt about his feelings. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. So where do we go from here? Harper asked. Forward, Lucas replied simply. Together. In the weeks that followed, Harper was introduced to Lucas's other life. He took her to his real apartment, a stunning penthouse with views of the city skyline. He introduced her to his sister Olivia, who was delighted to finally meet the barista who stole my brother's heart. He showed her the headquarters of Quinn Enterprises, a gleaming tower of glass and steel, where employees greeted him with a mixture of respect and affection. It was overwhelming at times, seeing the scope of Lucas's influence and success. But through it all, he remained the same man she'd fallen for, thoughtful, intelligent, and surprisingly humble despite his achievements. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of his penthouse watching the sunset, Lucas turned to Harper with a serious expression. I've been thinking, he began. That sounds dangerous, Harper teased, though she sensed the importance of the moment. Lucas smiled briefly before continuing. My sabbatical is coming to an end. The board expects me back full-time next month. Harper felt her heart sink slightly. She'd known this was coming, but part of her had been dreading the change it would bring to their relationship. I understand. You have responsibilities. I do, Lucas agreed. But that doesn't mean things have to change between us. In fact, I was hoping just the opposite. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Harper's eyes widened. Lucas. I know it might seem fast, he said, opening the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring set in platinum. But when you know, you know. And I've never been more certain of anything in my life. He took her hand. Harper Kane, I love you. You saw me, the real me, when I was trying to hide. You challenged me, supported me, and made me happier than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me? Tears filled Harper's eyes as she looked from the ring to the man holding it. Are you sure? Your world is so different from mine. Our worlds, Lucas corrected gently. And yes, I'm absolutely sure. The question is, are you? In that moment, Harper realized that despite all the complications, despite the vast differences in their backgrounds, what they had built together was stronger than any obstacle. Yes, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Yes, I'll marry you. As Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss, Harper marveled at how life could change so completely in the span of a few months. She had gone from training a quiet new barista to falling in love with one of the most successful men in the country. But beyond the fairy tale aspect, she had found someone who truly saw her, valued her talents, and loved her for exactly who she was. There's one more thing, Lucas said as they broke apart. I've been thinking about your design work. What about it? Quinn Enterprises is looking to overhaul our brand identity. Our current aesthetic is, well, it's dated. We need someone with fresh ideas, someone who understands both traditional values and contemporary design. He looked at her meaningfully. I think you'd be perfect for the job. Harper raised an eyebrow. Are you offering me a job because we're engaged? I'm offering you an interview, Lucas clarified. The job would be on your merit alone, and based on what I've seen, you'd blow the competition away. But it's entirely up to you. Your career is yours to build, however you want to build it. Harper considered this. The opportunity was incredible, but she valued her independence too. I'll think about it, she promised. But whatever I decide, thank you for believing in me. Always, Lucas replied, pulling her close again. 6 months later, Harper stood in the atrium of Quinn Enterprises, watching as the new company logo her design was unveiled to applause from the assembled employees and press. Beside her, Lucas squeezed her hand, pride evident in his expression. The journey hadn't been entirely smooth. There had been adjustments on both sides, Harper learning to navigate Lucas's world of wealth and influence, Lucas remembering that he couldn't simply solve every problem by throwing money at it. There had been tabloid speculation about their relationship, jealous comments from people who assumed Harper was just after Lucas's fortune, and the occasional clash of lifestyles. But through it all, they had remained a team, supporting each other's dreams and building a life that honored both their pasts and their shared future. As a freelance designer, she had decided against taking a permanent position at Quinn Enterprises to avoid any appearance of favoritism. Harper's career had flourished. With Lucas's encouragement, she had opened her own small design studio, specializing in helping startups and nonprofits develop their brand identities. Her work with Quinn Enterprises had been a springboard, but her success was entirely her own. Meanwhile, Lucas had returned to his role as CEO with a renewed perspective. His time working as a barista had given him insights into the daily realities of the people who used his products, leading to innovations that were more intuitive and accessible. Under his leadership, the company had continued to thrive, but with a new emphasis on social responsibility and work-life balance for employees. "Congratulations, Mrs. Quinn-to-be," Lucas whispered as they moved away from the crowd after the unveiling. Their wedding was scheduled for the following month, a small, intimate ceremony rather than the lavish affair many had expected. "Thank you, Mr. Kane-to-be," Harper replied with a smile, using the hyphenated name they had decided to share. Lucas laughed. "I still can't believe how lucky I was walking into that coffee shop having Roy assign you to train me." "Was it luck?" Harper asked curiously. "Or did you plan it somehow?" Lucas shook his head. "Pure coincidence. I chose that neighborhood because it was far from the financial district somewhere I was unlikely to be recognized. Roy hired me because his nephew vouched for me. I'd met him at a tech conference once and apparently made an impression. You training me was just lucky timing." "The best kind of luck," Harper said, leaning into him slightly. As they left the building together, walking hand in hand into the bright afternoon, Harper reflected on the strange, wonderful journey that had brought them to this point. From working beside a quiet stranger to falling in love with the man behind the disguise, she had discovered that sometimes the most extraordinary things happen when you least expect them. Lucas looked down at her, his expression soft. "What are you thinking about?" "Just that sometimes life's biggest surprises come in the most ordinary packaging," Harper replied. "Like falling in love with a barista who turns out to be a billionaire?" Lucas suggested with a smile. "Or a billionaire who turns out to be just the man I was looking for," Harper corrected, stretching up to kiss him as the world continued to move around them, bright with possibility, and the promise of a shared future neither could have imagined just 1 year before. That evening, as they sat in their favorite restaurant, the same small cafe where they'd had their first real conversation outside of work, Lucas raised his glass in a toast. "To new beginnings," he said. "And to taking chances on quiet strangers," Harper added with a smile. They clinked glasses, both knowing that their story was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning, a love built on seeing beyond appearances, on finding the extraordinary in the everyday, and on the simple truth that sometimes the most valuable things in life can't be measured in dollars and cents, but in the moments of connection that transform two separate lives into one shared journey. And as Lucas reached across the table to take her hand, his eyes reflecting the same love and wonder she felt, Harper knew with absolute certainty that this, not the wealth, not the success, but this moment of perfect understanding between them was the true fortune they had found together.